Good afternoon from the Q workshop over in Blondie. Today we are working in the workshop and I wanted to give you a tour of some of the equipment that I use as a sculptor in wood. So I'll give you a quick visual overview of some of the tools. We've got axes, carbide cutters, planers and sculptor blades. We've got polishing systems. We have specialist sanding equipment. But what we'll do is we'll go through some of the tools and we'll start with the hand tools. So most of the tools that I use now for efficiency and speed, but also for getting into fine corners, are machine tools. We have these DeWalt angle grinder, battery operated, with a very special tool that I absolutely love using. It's pretty aggressive. This is made by Manpatools, who are an Asian company who make exceptionally good cutting blades. This one here, with the motor turned off, you can see the carbide teeth here, which are all replaceable. And you can see that the carbide teeth are actually triangles, which means when I'm carving, I can do some really interesting sculpting with this head. There's three other heads. There's one that's round, there's one that's got a really concave cutting blade to it, and then there's a few other fittings that they do. Also a conical cutter for doing deep boring. But this machine is an exceptionally good one. It works on a belt drive. It's about €350 for the starter kit, and then you can change these heads. If you're into sculpting and you're serious about sculpting, highly recommend that tool. Then we have my other handmade or other hand tool by DeWalt, which is basically holds all my bearing tools, carbide bears that go into here for, again, refined detail work. I'll just show you some of them. For those, we have our bears, which go into here. And these, I've got about 20 different styles of these, different colours, different grits. But these are really good, again, for refined work. We also have our 2-inch grinding head, which can go on the angle grinder. Again, this is for doing really refined work. These come in green, yellow, orange, and red. They're made by Sabertooth, really good piece of kit. Last a long time because these cutters can be cleaned, and you can see there on the profile the carbide edge. Now that cutting disc there is about 6 years old and it's still cutting, and I use them a lot. Then moving on to our other carbide cutters. Again, I only use Sabertooth for my carbide cutters because basically they're the best on the market. The carbide lasts a long time, they don't break off, they don't shatter, and they don't blunt. So if I zoom into this carbide disc is about 4 years old, and you can still see all the teeth there, nice and sharp. Now the holes are quite interesting because they redesigned the whole concept of the carbide cutting wheel, and they put holes into it, so when it's spinning at 2,400 RPM, you can see through the disc and you can see what you're cutting. So as that's spinning really fast, it moves that fast that it actually creates an aperture in the hole for you to see through, which is very useful when you're doing really delicate work. Then we have another company's maker, which is Carbide, another one. These are from Australia. Again, this has got 3 cutting teeth on it. It's called a planer blade, but I use it a little bit differently. You can really flatten off wood with this blade. Notice the guards. The guards are always on my tools. I nearly lost my finger a number of years ago when someone took a guard off one of my tools. I always keep the guards on because without the guard, you're working unsafely and it's really easy to lose a finger. So anyway, going back to that bit of health and safety there, the Carbide company in Australia have produced a number of outstanding tools, really pushed the market for sculptors and carvers, and this is one of my favourite tools. It also comes in this size, the 2-inch model, but this 125mm one will set you back about €120. It lasts a long time. These teeth can be sharpened, but it's really good for refined sculpting. Again, all the tools I use, apart from when I'm using a chainsaw, are adaptable to either aggressive carving or refined carving. So then we come on to the other discs. Holy Galahad. Now I'm showing you these because they're okay. They were the original makers of these discs, but I don't really rate them anymore because they don't hold the bite. This one is shot because it just cannot be cleaned. It sort of heats up, and then this is where the wood is actually turned into carbide and then just melted onto the blade teeth. So one side's okay, but the other's not. Another one, the blade teeth are semi-okay. You can see some of the teeth are broken off there. So I don't really recommend the Holy Galahad ones. They're a little bit expensive as well. Back to the saber-tooth. This saber-tooth disc has taken what I call a proper hammering, because you can see the teeth have gone there. Now this disc is 10 years old and I'm still using it. Now that for me is value for money, but this is called a donut wheel. So this is basically a 30mm donut, sits on your angle grinder, and this will mince through wood like you would not believe. I mean, seriously, this thing cuts. It'll cut plastic, it'll cut bone. The only thing you can't use it on is steel. Another one of my see-through wheels, as we call them, by Holy Galahad, and then one of the red wheels. This one's still okay, but it's not brilliant. I don't think you can see it's still pretty clean. I don't use it that much because it just doesn't do the job. So that's the introduction to the cutting wheels. Okay, so we've got our cutting system. We have our refined system for small apertures. Then we have our big wheels, which I remove for basically carving out timber. So when I was carving this mirror, the donut wheels were used to create these shapes to the wood, to remove all the dead timber, all the bark on the outside, and basically refine the shape. It's your initial carving. Then we come on to the Kirjes system. So a really clever guy who makes bowls, I think he's Swedish, come up with taking basically a small polishing machine, adapting the drive shaft so that you can put a polishing head on it, on a flexible drive. So if I zoom out, you can see this flexible drive here. So here we have it, our flexible drive. That's just on 1 meter long. Now this spins around and these wheels are inflatable. So I'll show you one of the round heads. This is one of my more popular ones. These are soft tires fitted on a 3.5mm shank, and you use this little hand pump to pump them up. Put your sandpaper on, you pump that up, and then you can start to use it on the flexible shaft for sanding. So if you imagine you've got a flexible tire that will contour to the shape of your wood and refine it to about a 600 grip finish. Whether you're sculpting like I am or whether you're a bowl carver, this thing is amazing. It's the only system on the market. No one else, I mean, he's got it copyrighted, but no one else has tried to copy it, and no one else has developed a better system. And I've been using this one about 8 years. It's never failed. It's just a little gem. It's absolutely brilliant. That's about €350 for that kit. And then you buy your heads separately. And there's 4 different heads. There's our long head, which is 3 inches long, nice and soft, as you can see. Our 2-inch donut head, our 40mm donut, and then you do an even smaller 20mm, and then a really small 30mm. So that's our Kirjes system. Highly recommended for sculptors and bowl turners. Let me move these out of the way. So then we have some of the hand tools I use. So this is my favourite axe. Well, actually, these are my favourite axes. So this axe was made by Roselli, and he's refined this axe. It's a beautiful axe. It's been reprofiled. But this axe, basically, as you can see, my fingers get into the axe, which means that I can really carve slowly, surely, and get each cut really accurate. It's called the Forester. It's got a short handle on it. They do a shorter version. And I've had this axe about 15 years. It does need a polish and a regrind. but it's a beautiful tool. I mean, it'll take down a small tree, but I use it for carving. This axe, again, the handle was made a number of years ago, and it's just my go-to axe. It's just the right weight for me. It's got a beautiful blade, and because it's got a nice pinpoint to it, I can really get into the wood. And again, you can see the hand position. I can lock my finger behind the blade, and I can just push like a knife. It's just a beautiful axe. It's a pleasure to use. Then we have our adze. This is a Henry, let me check. Yeah, Henry Taylor adze. I've had this one about 15 years, and it's okay. It's not the best, mainly because I need to do a new handle for it, and I find that the blade is just a little bit too thick for my liking, so I've got a couple of adze that I use. Then on the wall, we have some of my draw knives that I use. We've got the small Flexi Pirelli, then we have some of the classic French, then we have our straight blade. We've got another one of my favourite axes here. This is just a small hand axe, but it is used a lot for carving again. And what else do we have over there? Now this was made by a friend over in Wales. So this tool, let me just put the camera down to show you this, because this is an amazing piece of kit. This is made by a gentleman called, sorry for the wobble folks, this is made by a gentleman called Kirjes in Wales, who's been making carving tools and bowl turning tools for a long time. I have to be very careful how I take this off, and you'll see why in a second, because I don't want to take a chunk out of my finger. So take it off. So that baby, that's one tool that I keep razor sharp at all times, and that is what I use for spoon carving. It's a hollow gouge, and it's just an amazing tool. You've got a really long handle on it. I mean, that is about 450mm long, that tool. Really nice handle, so you can get a good grip on it, and then when you're carving out your spoon bowl, you can get a nice sweep in there. This isn't a dangerous tool, but it's a tool you really got to have a lot of respect for, because if you mess around with that and if you don't know what you're doing, you can really hurt yourself. But it's an exceptionally nice tool to make, to use, and because it was handmade for me, I love it. It's one of my favourite tools. So we'll slide that back on. We always put it back in our sheath because no one wants to hurt themselves. So that's our spoon gouge. Then over here we have some of my general chisels that I use for marking out, for joinery, some of our small router bits that we use, and then under the table as well, which I'm not going to show you, we have a number of other hand tools. So that's a little bit of a tour around my sculpting kit. And for dust extraction, which people may be interested in, dust it off, we have the air shield. So the air shield is basically a battery operated, you've got a little battery pack in the back of here, so that fires cool air into here, which means that you can carve, you're not breathing in dust, and this is constantly keeping you cool. The shield covers are replaceable, so if you damage the shield, you just remove this film off the front. But made by Trend, lots of other makers out there. I prefer the Trend because this cover creates a really good enclosure, and when you're using it, you're not getting hot and sweaty, you're staying cool, and you're not breathing in dust because it has a filter built into it. So your filter points are here. So your filter points are here. Really good piece of kit, highly recommended. They're about €400, but you know, your lungs are worth €400. That's what I always say. So there's a little bit of a demo about some of our tools. This is a long video today. We'll go over the Festool sanders on another video, which is the R090 that I use for refined sanding and polishing. But that's some of the kit used by a wood sculptor. Any questions? Links will go up on the video, but if you've got any specific questions about any of the tools today, please post below.